speaking about India's endeavor in order to establish peace in the world, we have played a very significant role in restoring and maintaining global peace throughout active participation in the UN peacekeeping missions earlier as well. India has deployed over 200,000 personnel across 50 missions since the United Nations inception. Currently, India ranks as the fourth largest troop contributor with over 6,400 personnel serving in various conflict zones including South Sudan, Congo and Lebanon as well. India's involvement in peacekeeping operations, particularly in Africa, is well recognized, with around 80% of peacekeeping and peacekeepers being stationed on the continent belonging and having their roots in India. Moreover, India's participation is not just limited to military support. We've also extended to training other nations' peacekeepers as well, including women, and contributing funds aimed at addressing issues such as sexual exploitation and abuse as well. The statistic is, of course, a very staggering number of testament to India's role in the world, something that we have consistently put forth as our stance, and we have not wavered from it. We had a non-aligned position while the Cold War was also taking place, still deployed our peacekeepers in various locations across the world, notably in Sri Lanka, whether in South Sudan as well as Congo, and of course now we are seeing how India is also pitching for establishing peace between Russia and Ukraine as well. As a Vishwa Bandhu, we've always made sure to step up our efforts, and now we've seen how the Prime Minister is going to Kyiv. It is a global moment of hope. The world is watching, even as the Prime Minister Modi is set to land in Ukraine as well. All eyes are on Bharat, because this is a very, very high stakes meeting that is going to take place. We have seen India continuously lending out an olive branch to both Russia and Ukraine ever since the war had commenced in February 2022. As I mentioned earlier, there are about 900 plus days that have gone by and the war is still raging. Ukraine, of course, engaging in a new offensive. US also increasing the amount of aid and the packages that it is giving to Ukraine as well. Of course, putting into perspective India's role as far as restoring peace across the world is concerned, we have consistently maintained our stance in order to ensure that we are playing our part and our role, however small it may be, wherever it is across the world, whether in Africa or in Europe or in Southeast Asia. We've constantly made an effort to make sure that we are there for the people in these countries, saving their lives and making sure that peace is restored as soon as possible. With us on the broadcast is Professor Madhav Nalapad. Sir, thank you once again for joining us. I'm of course referring to how India has consistently made sure that it is involved in ensuring that peace is prevailing across the globe. I've referred to the 200,000 plus peacekeepers of India that are, of course, taking part in UN missions across the world, whether in Congo or in South Sudan or in Lebanon for that matter. Do you think then this our role as a Vishwa Bandhu and us stepping up our efforts in Ukraine as well can now help perhaps chalk out a deal?
India is, not just another voice. The fact is that India, the Prime Minister is speaking from the tradition of India, and that tradition is a tradition of non-violence. The Mahatma, the Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, he was the apostle of peace, the apostle of non-violence, and that is the noble tradition that India has got. And that is the reason why I think Prime Minister Modi has been stressing the importance of peace. He has not been doing this indirectly. He has done this directly many times over. He said this directly to President Putin 2 years ago, and he is probably going to repeat that to President Zelenskyy in a few hours' time. And I hope this time around, Zelenskyy will listen. He will understand what is happening and listen. Prime Minister Modi is speaking from the Indian tradition. He is speaking from, frankly, the country of the Mahatma, the country where the Mahatma fought the biggest empire in the world, if I may say so, the strongest empire in the world, and fought it entirely in a non-violent manner, inspiring people like Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela. And Mandela succeeded. South Africa is now a free country, free of apartheid. And as far as Martin Luther King is concerned, well, you have the Johnson reforms, and today the black community, you've got doctors, engineers, lawyers, professionals in profusion. Therefore, the community is blending into other communities in the United States effortlessly. And that is happening because of Martin Luther King, because of Mandela, and the inspiration they got from Mahatma Gandhi. So I'd like to say that this time around, hopefully, Zelenskyy will listen to the Prime Minister, or Zelenskyy's advisors will counsel him to listen and not just turn a deaf ear, as took place in 2022. Because all that has happened since 2022, Ukraine has lost many more sons and daughters, lost more territory, and even more is to follow, because after a time, Russia is going to be fed up of what it sees as pinpricks and make a full-scale assault. And Russia has got a huge military, and it's got a huge array of weapons, and once it does so, well, there'll be nothing standing in the way. I mean, unless Biden were to empty the Pentagon and the European powers were to empty the Pentagon, and even that would not help unless they send millions of troops. They're not going to send one soldier to battle, because one soldier coming back, less than healthy, will be political suicide for the leader of that country. Scholz has become unpopular, Biden has become unpopular, Johnson became deeply unpopular, Sunak became unpopular, and I must say that disappointing that Kamala Harris stuck to this line on Ukraine, stuck to this that we will fight to the last Ukrainian. In my view, the sooner she dissociates herself from that line, the sooner she separates from the Biden line, the better it will be for her, because Americans are also tired of this war. And when they see Kamala Harris rooting for this war, rooting for this endless war in Ukraine, this hopeless war in Ukraine, they say, my gosh, is this Kamala Harris that we thought we knew, or is this somebody else? Is this Donald Trump looking like Kamala Harris? Because this is what Trump is saying, on the other side. He's saying, stop the war. On the opposite. And people who want to stop the war, they're saying, if Kamala Harris is all for the war, then we have no choice. We have to go for Trump. So I'd only like to say what the Prime Minister is speaking is common sense. Common sense, unfortunately, is very uncommon in several parts of the world, especially among top leaders. The Prime Minister is speaking common sense. He is coming to Ukraine with a message of hope. And that hope is wrapped up in peace. Peace is a precondition for hope. Hope is the precondition for the rebuilding of Ukraine. And I'd like to end by saying the Ukrainians are a great people, a noble people, and they will rebuild themselves, but they have to do it before even more destruction takes place. And the only way they can do it is by listening to the advice of the Prime Minister and stopping the war now.
Indeed, sir, you've put it very aptly that common sense is rather uncommon across the world. I'd like to thank you for joining us on the broadcast. Viewers, we're also being joined by Major Mohammad Ali Shah, defense expert. Sir, thank you for taking out time speaking to us on the broadcast. You've just heard Professor Nalapat, share his insights on the Indian ethos of unity and amity. I've referred to how India has played a very proactive role in peacekeeping missions, whether it is in Sudan or it is in Congo or even Lebanon for that matter, how we've always extended a helping hand to the people across the world, keeping in line our motto, especially that of G20, that we are one world, one family with one future. Now, of course, PM Modi is heading to Kyiv even as hostilities have in fact surged over the past couple of weeks, especially due to the offensive at the Kursk region, the Ukrainian offensive in particular. How do you view the geopolitical situation, and do you think that Prime Minister Modi's message of hope will in fact ensure that the parties at least come to the table?
Right. So you brought out very, very correctly and aptly that, India has always played its part in the peacekeeping, be it in Sudan, be it Lebanon, be it Congo, be it in Sri Lanka, where in the mid-80s we had sent Indian peacekeeping force, be it anywhere, because we've always believed in peace and all the world one family. In fact, we had hosted the G20 last year. So the very fact that our Prime Minister, in the start of the war itself, of Russia-Ukraine, he had mentioned कि युद्ध से किसी का भला नहीं होता, किसी को जीतना नहीं है, no one wins, सब हारते ही हैं, everyone loses. So the very fact is, when there is a war like that happening, and when our Prime Minister is speaking, most certainly, I think it'll hold some weightage somewhere, because at the end of the day, if you remember, हमने इतने सफलता से हमने गंगा भी चलाया. We got our people back from Afghanistan. We got people from Bangladesh, rescued, and not just Indian nationals from every country. So the very fact that, including our adversary Pakistan, was flying the Indian national flag on their bus in Ukraine, so to keep themselves safe. So the very fact that when India speaks, the world sits up and listens. So people have to understand, जब कुछ बोल रहे हैं, तो there must be some depth, some gehrai in that, some gravity in that. So most certainly, I have a strong feeling. I hope there is some outcome of our Prime Minister trying to explain both sides, in fact, not to go ahead with the war and Khun Kharaba and such things. So I am an optimist, and I am thinking very, very positively. I hope there is some result over there.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.